I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is Rachel Cretien, the director of Our Island Home, the town's nursing home. Welcome,
Yes,
Rachel.
welcome.
Nice to have you.
It's good to be here.
Thank you. How long have you been doing your job? About a year and a half now, is it? Or is it longer?
As the administrator, I've
Yes.
been doing it since 2011.
2011, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I've been there a little over 10 years now. I started about 11 years ago working for the town at the senior center, and then after about a year moved over to the nursing home.
Our Island Home is almost unique, which is not grammatically incorrect, but it's almost unique. There are very few town-owned facilities.
In Massachusetts, yes.
Well, even anywhere. I mean, I think, Greenwich had one. I don't know if they still do. Greenwich, Connecticut. But it was the only one around.
On the other side of the country,
Yeah.
they see them a lot more than we do on the East Coast. But yeah, besides our island home, the only other municipally owned is Taunton. And there is one geriatric authority, but it's not exactly the same concept as a municipally owned nursing home, but it's not exactly nonprofit, for-profit, or privately owned. So they're a little unique, but besides Taunton Nursing Home, it's just us.
You need a new building.
We do.
Why?
Many reasons. The biggest, most glaring, obviously, besides the cosmetic look of it, is the infrastructure. It's extremely outdated. It's extended its use life.
When was it built, this building?
1980. Moved in about 1981, I believe. And so there was a addition of a dining room that was put on a little while back, but some of the infrastructure was never upgraded to accommodate that. So even the existing load that's put on the infrastructure that's in place is exceeded the actual capacity of what the systems can take on. So we've actually been pretty lucky with getting by with what we have for so long.
And it's not just a question of your saying or the town saying we need this. It's also a state issue, is it not?
Yeah, it's definitely a state issue. There's many regulations that are out there called life safety codes that are generated usually through fire codes, but they relate to the building as well that we are not up to code with. But they understand the economic impact of upgrading that. Once you start doing a little bit of remodeling in one area, it now causes the entire building to have to be up to code. So ultimately you're talking about an entire rebuild of the building. And that's something that kind of what prompted a lot of this when we started some plans and designing back in 2007. There's a lot of pressure from the state. There's been a lot of issues. We lose heat or we lose AC. There's not consistent AC. There's not individual thermostats. So heating wise, just with the HVAC concept is one whole area. Then we have concepts with plumbing that we get into disasters with. So anytime the building and the temperature exceeds or goes under a certain range, I have to do a report to the state. Anytime we have any plumbing issues, I'm supposed to do a report or a call into the state. So they're kind of getting to the point where
they're
saying
many
enough
calls.
is enough.
Too many calls.
What's going on?
From a capacity standpoint, is the facility big enough? Is it too big? Is it too small?
In terms of bed size?
Bed size. How many beds are there?
There's 45 beds total.
45.
Right now we are at 39 out of those 45, soon to be 38. We're sending somebody home, thankfully.
Well, that's nice.
That is nice. We usually run about that. The state average for census is in the 80s, and we usually run about 90%. So we usually stay steady between 40 and 41. Some of the things that we're starting to learn and explore through this SK advisors that we've engaged with is that there is a good portion of the residents that have such low acuity that they truly would be better suited in another type of facility, such as an assisted living. It's just a matter of payer source, and so they would have to be in a certified assisted living, Mass Health.
You lost me. What does payer source mean?
Payer source is just how we receive reimbursement. So you could be private pay, or you could be on Mass Health or Medicaid. So anybody that has very low income usually qualifies for Mass Health, and that is the largest payer source that we have at the Island Home. Acuity level, ties into that. So we have a very large portion of our Mass Health residents who are at the lower acuity end, which means they need less care, less time with our skilled nursing
But there's
aides.
no place else for them.
But there's no place else for them.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties into the concept of, do we need more beds, do we need less beds, or is it just the type of beds that we have? So there is a group that, because we're in Nantucket, we take care of our own, and we don't want them to go anywhere else, we keep them at the island home. While most nursing homes would probably refer more to a Mass Health accepting assisted living, or a lower grade level of care institution or facility. So there is that. So when there's a lot of talk about how many beds do we need in the future, what is it looking at now, 45 is actually not a bad number based on what we're doing. And the hospital swing beds impacts that as well. So there's a lot of different impeding factors that come into that. One of the things that...
But you don't really take people in on a short-term basis, do you, or do you?
We do. We take people in short terms. We do some respite. So if there's a family that needs a little time, if there's something going on, we have taken people for a short period under a respite case. And we also take people under short-term rehab or what's Medicare. So they usually are at the hospital through their swing bed program, and once they hit a certain amount of time or level from their perspective, they refer over to us. We continue on that plan of care, and then we discharge them home. So we do a lot more short-term than we used to do in the past, yes.
How many beds were in the, do you know how many beds were in the old facility that's now Landmark House?
I don't. That's a good question.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
So we get to this point now where we're talking about needing a new facility, and there's been a lot of discussion over the last 2 or 3 years about where to put it.
Yes.
And I guess there's some who said it should go to pair up in a sense with Sherburne Commons. There are some who said that the Fairgrounds Road facility is a good place for it, although I guess that's less desirable than the Sherburne Commons. And then now there's a group saying, leave it where it is, becoming quite vocal.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you are able to have an opinion on the subject, but from the management perspective, what would be the best case?
From looking at all the options that have gone before me in terms of resident impact, the pros and cons, all the different variables, we had a total of, I believe, 12 options, start to finish, of different combinations of places and things to go. That the overall best quality of life to be provided to the residents, location, efficiency, cost of running the facility, keeping the services in a continuum. I mean, one thing that we're truly learning from a lot of this process is the services provided to those who need it are so disjointed across, there's just too many different organizations that don't really have a lot of ties with one another. Not by anybody's fault, and would be Sherburne Commons, doing a small house model on the Sherburne Commons property. Now, that is not to say that if it was possible to have minimal impact on our residents, not have to relocate anybody, not have to impact staff, to keep it at its current location based on the view, and that I would be all for that as well. It's just when you look at it, there's a lot that will go into that process. The cost of it is much more, so that is a part of some people's thinking in whether they would be willing to support that or not, or vote for that or not. Is, you know, it's not, everybody has different priorities. Some people put the view here. My priority is the residents, the staff, and the quality of their care and the type of care model. So there's benefits of all areas, and I think everybody that I knew has gone into this process multiple times with saying, God, we'd really love to keep it where it is. The view is, it's a great location. However, let's really look at this and see what is the best option out of all of these and why. And so I think if you want my opinion, I can certainly see the attachment to the current location. I work there. I see it. You know, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful view. You can't deny that. Anybody that says otherwise is
blind.
Yes, basically. But there are so many benefits to putting it out at the Sherburne Commons property in the small house model.
What does that mean, the small house model?
It's ultimately it has it's similar to our wings. So the way the building would be composed of. However, if you look at what our building looks like now, they're long hospital, medical, institutional, sterile looking hallways. Right. And what these small houses concept does is it takes the concept of greenhouse, Eden alternatives, home-like atmosphere concepts that have been proven to greatly improve residents' quality of life that need this type of level of care, and put them in a more home-like environment. Since probably about 2005, 2006, all of these concepts really started to evolve, and a lot of them were based on the need for culture change. We can deliver this care in a better way. People don't want to live in an institution. They want to live in their homes. How can we replicate that? How can we engage? How can we put the focus less on task orientation and staff convenience and routines and put it more on the residents, their life, what they want, how they want to keep them engaged, not part of a routine and a shuffle.
But doesn't that argue in favor of the people who want to leave it where it is, in terms of the view?
It's just a matter, I mean, the view, yes,
Yeah.
it certainly can, but in terms of the small house replicating that where it currently is, I think you would have to do some serious rebuild of the current building in order to do that. So each of the small houses has its own living concept. There's private rooms, private baths. There's almost miniature kitchens where the residents who are capable can engage in helping with meal prep. They can watch the meal prep. They can smell the, I mean, I visited one of these that was in Chelsea, Mass, and it was just instantly walking in, the entire feel was completely different. It was very uplifting, and I think that there's many organizations out there that support these type of concepts and culture change. And some of the things that I hear or get asked is, yeah, but we can't do that with our residents. We can't do that with those who have Alzheimer's or dementia. And actually, these were designed for those specifically people in mind, and the Alzheimer's Association supports the building of these above anything else. So it's really a way to re-engage people, recreate the home, recreate a life rather than an institutional routine.
With a view.
With a view.
Well, I mean,
the view is something. I think part of the problem with that is, in order to re-engage the current building at its current location, the rebuild amount of disruption for the residents, or how to do that on its current location, is a bit of a challenge. And you know, the state would have to approve any plan to do that. So if it involves lessening our beds for a little while, or relocating some residents off, or diminishing our staffing capacities to accommodate lesser residents, or any of the infrastructure upgrades, the State Department needs a very detailed plan that they would approve. And some of the things that we're hearing, because of our lower acuity levels, because of our high payer source and Medicaid, because of relocation, it's really not something that is going to get approved unofficially, obviously. We don't have an official until you put in a actual determination of need application. And there are other plans out there. There are people who have engaged different concepts, designs that I've seen on the current location. And some of the problems that when we actually start drilling into the detail, because everybody knows the devil's in the details, is a lot of this engages where our electrical panel is, our main electrical panel is, where our main sewer waste lines are. So what do we do with those things? How do we move those to upgrade what's there to it just, I mean, besides a complete rebuild, it's really hard to look at that. Our plumbing, for one, is quite a challenge and in need of a lot of work. So it's really hard to build a new facility with very well working, efficient systems on top of tying them into one that needs a lot more work. I mean, obviously, I'm not an engineer, so my language on how this stuff works is a little.
You just know you have to make that call to the
I
state.
just know that what I hear is that it's not really something that you want to do with people living there 24/7. I mean, and that's the other thing that we hear a lot. Well, Stop and Shop did it, and you know, the hospital has to rebuild while they're still in operation, and we understand that. I certainly understand that. We've done a couple minor upgrades to the facility, and the minor upgrades and the disruption that it caused to the residents and staff and neighbors was quite interesting. So I think the biggest difference there is people live there 24/7 with disabilities and incapacities, and it's quite hard for them to adjust to that. So those are some things to take into consideration.
Well, I think they're good, and this has been a very useful discussion, and I appreciate
hope
your
so.
coming in to talk about it. Rachel Cretien, Administrator of our Island Home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.